What is up, YouTube? I installed a K-Series intake manifold on my Toyota Celica, and today I'm going to show you how I did it. So I've had my Celica now for maybe over a year and a half. The original plan was to boost it, so I started doing some research, and the plastic manifold that comes on the engine can fail really easily under boost. There's these dividers on the inside of the manifold, and they'll actually break apart and blow into your engine. So one of the solutions of this is actually to remove them, which can be tricky to do it by yourself. And then you can also purchase them from Monkey Wrench Racing for like $175. And so I was thinking to myself, what if I could just adapt an aluminum intake manifold? So I ended up checking on eBay and was able to find these really cheap Skunk 2 knockoff manifolds for like $100. And I thought, why not make an adapter to make it fit? Now, side note, I actually put on a 2-piece design here, which are a little bit more expensive, but I did that because my other project over here, the 260Z, is actually getting a rear wheel drive swapped 1ZZ. So the plan is to take my rebuilt 1ZZ that I have over here, turn it in line with the 260Z, made it to the 260Z stock transmission, turbo it, and put it in the 260Z. So that's why I bought the 2-piece design, because this plenum can actually flip and you can point the throttle body facing what would be the front of the 260Z. So I bought one of the manifolds, started making some models, and obviously it wasn't going to fit, so I had to make an adapter. I started making one out of wood first. The tricky part is you actually had to point the intake down in order to clear the hood on the Celica. So the angles of the adapter kind of gave it like this weird slanted face that made it really hard to make. And also, as you can see, I had to make it clear the fuel rail because the K-Series flange actually sits up above the fuel rail on my 1ZZ, which also made it pretty tricky and gave it this weird ledge that you can see in the model here. So I took a bunch of measurements, got my model, and had a good friend from work actually 3D print it. He had to do it in 2 pieces because his 3D printer wasn't big enough, but I was able to mount them up to the engine, verify that my model fit, so that whenever I was ready to get this thing machined out of aluminum, I had a good model. So the same friend that 3D printed it actually has a CNC mill at home, and he's a programmer at my work. So on the side, he took my chunk of aluminum home and started cutting away. And soon my big block of aluminum turned into this beautiful adapter. Now, it really was so cool seeing my adapter like come to life. I'm an engineer, but I'm not a design engineer, so I'm not designing parts every day. But to see a part that I was able to design on my own for a actual purpose that I cared about was just really cool. And it was cool to see this block just turn into this awesome machined billet part. So with any first prototype, obviously, you got to make sure it all fits once you're done. Luckily, I had my spare 1ZZ here that I was able to mock everything up on and get everything fit up and verify that everything worked. And I had some more modifications to do, some grinding and cutting and clearancing to get this thing to fit properly. There was actually a little bit of an issue with the mill. Something was programmed a little off, and my angles turned out not being too great, because now actually it's pointed upward enough that the hood does not clear. So prototype 2 would have to be updated to verify that it fits and the hood clears. I think it was just a programming error, so I think the model's fine, but it was just this first prototype. We got to work out the kinks. So there were a few other things I needed to do to get this intake manifold to work. The first thing was make my throttle body adapter, which basically consisted of laying out the holes for the K-Series manifold, the threaded holes, and then also laying out the holes on the 1ZZ throttle body. And I was actually able to utilize 2 of them to share. So these bolts here go the whole way through and thread into the throttle body, and then these thread into my threaded holes that I tapped in the adapter, and then also drilling a hole saw through the middle of it to the right size. And then I bought some cool counterbore, basically mills or bits, to drill a counterbore for a socket head cap screw that is underneath the throttle body to thread the adapter into the manifold. And then lastly, one of the other things I had to do was basically drill and tap what would be the injector ports in the K-Series manifold. Those are drilled and tapped to an NPT thread, and then I just plugged them with these little black hex NPT plugs. That's the easiest way I could figure out how to do it, and it seems to work perfect. And then, of course, there's all these little ports around this side and then on the bottom. So I did the same thing, NPT threaded those and plugged those as well with the same black plugs. So I think it gives it a pretty sleek look. And then just to get it jerry-rigged onto the Celica, again, this is not the final configuration. The final configuration will be on my 260Z in the rear-wheel drive swapped form. But just to get it onto the Celica, I just connected my vacuum port here, most likely where my vacuum leaks are coming from. As you could tell when the engine was running, it seemed to be revving high. Most likely a vacuum leak after the MAF. I'm not going to chase it down right now because, again, this is not the final configuration of this, so I didn't want to really waste my time. I didn't even bother hooking up the brake booster, and I actually just plugged this vacuum line, so that's probably making it not run too great either. And then obviously hooked up my cold air intake pipe, MAF, throttle position sensor, and all that good stuff just to get it running and idling. This isn't really a full test, but this was me installing it and making sure it runs. That way I know it's a foolproof design for my 1ZZ. So there you have it, K-Series intake manifold on a Toyota 1ZZ. This would fit a Celica, Matrix, not an MR2 since those are in the back of the car. But a Corolla, all those cars with the 1ZZs in it. I had a ton of fun. I can't wait to get this installed in the rear-wheel drive format. I think it's just going to be a sick engine and a sick look with the intake manifold. These adapters I do plan on possibly selling, so if you are interested, please send me a DM on my Instagram at CadeKB, and if I get enough people committed to ordering these things, I will get the design finalized and complete, and we'll get these adapters on order. Let me know if you're interested. Again, this was the first prototype, so it definitely had some tweaks, but if you're going to turbo your 1ZZ, there's only a few different options, and this is kind of the middle of the road price-wise, and definitely cooler looking than your plastic manifold. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Look out for the next video, and stay tuned for more cool stuff in the garage. See you guys later.